800-570-6630. That's 800-570-6630. Offers require credit qualification, 24-month commitment, early termination fee, and e-auto pay. Restrictions apply. Call for details.
And it is now time for the Gut Check Project. You were here with your host, Ken Brown, MD. I'm Eric Rieger. This is where you check your ego at the door because nothing's off the table. What's up, Dr. Ken? How you doing?
That's good. I think that's one of the first times, or the few times that you used my title there, MD. So I'm here with my co-host, Eric Rieger, CRNA.
You like that? I don't know. I'd like to mix it up. As you can tell, I will do it different almost every single time.
What? We're on episode 14, aren't we?
We are on episode number 14. That is correct.
So today, we've got a really cool guest coming on, and I'm super excited about this. So one of the things that you and I have done, and we've got a lot of feedback from people that have been writing in, is that we bring guests on that we're trying to learn some stuff from.
Correct.
And I think that almost every single episode, I've become more knowledgeable. It has expanded my mind, and I think today is exactly where we need to be because we have somebody who's a great storyteller that's got some incredible experiences and just throws himself out there. And that's sort of how we're kind of doing everything right now.
Yeah, if you're new to the Gut Check Project, I think that what you find that what Ken and I both want to do out of the guest is find a little bit about their journey that took them to where they are now, because life is a journey. You're going to find that you're going to be satisfied once you know more about yourself, and how else are you going to know what you want until you kind of explore a little bit more around you. So
exactly. So we have Cooper Reed on the show today, and he is somebody who is really, it's enlightening. He actually inspires me and other people around him, and he just jumps in to explore different areas, different ways of health. And he's going to get into a lot of different stuff. But if you're somebody who is kind of stuck in a rut right now, this is your show, because we're going to cover novel, fringe stuff that I think is actually something that can change both health and mind. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that Cooper has a great story of just being dissatisfied with where he found himself and decided to do something about it. So I'm not going to ruin his story, but we'll get to that whenever he joins us here in about 30 minutes.
And it just so happens that he's doing something about it in a field that I have tremendous interest in, and medicine is going that way. And I think that we will all be talking about this 5 years from now as really to improve mental health.
Without question. Real quick, of course, if you're also new to the Gut Check Project, and even if you aren't, you should always go to lovemytummy.com/Spoonie. We're on the Spoonie Network. So /Spoonie will give you Atrantil at a discount that you won't find hardly anywhere else. So what is it about Atrantil that makes it so unique, Dr. Brown?
So this is kind of exciting. This is my baby right here. And a little shout out to Siobhan Sarna, who is the head of the IBS SIBO SOS Summit, because probably much to her relief, I finally got done filming my webinar for this. There's a lot of experts on there.
That is so nice.
And we got a chance. One of the reasons why I was asked to speak on that summit, I mean, I'm looking at the other featured lectures, and she's like, "You're the last one. You got to do this." Mark Pimentel did his. Satish Rao did his. We've got Tom Osborne that did his, and all these other people, and Alison Seebecker. She's like, "You're holding up the whole show."
Hey, for those who are into KBMD Health and follow us and get the emails that we get every week that we send out, just be sure and tune in, because what Dr. Brown is referencing is SIBO SOS Summit. If you've ever been interested in why certain people suffer from GI distress and they can't quite find the answers, that's kind of what this whole summit is about. Not everything is going to apply to everyone, but there may be something in there for everybody who tunes in.
Yeah, and what's super cool about this particular summit and what Siobhan has put together is that you have people that have had different experiences doing different things.
Correct.
And my experience was in trying to find a natural solution for people that have irritable bowel syndrome, bloating, change in bowel habits, and that's how we discovered Atrantil. We have 2 trials which have been published, and we've been out now for about 3 years, and the reality is we're seeing the same clinical results that we did in those trials, which is 4 out of 5 people are going to get better if you have the classic symptoms of when you eat, you bloat. Now, the other cool thing since we launched is that we have since learned through other scientists contacting us that the polyphenols in Atrantil are actually extremely beneficial for you. They work on an anti-aging level. There's data to show that urolithin goes up, which helps get rid of old and aging cells. There's data to show that you increase nitric oxide to the muscles. So if you're an athlete, so it's really exciting. I started this journey to try and help people that were bloated, that have bacterial overgrowth, and we just keep expanding and knocking down new doors. And that's what's so exciting about this. Atrantil, lovemytummy.com/Spoonie, put in code Spoonie, SPOONY, and you can also experience this. So this is my baby. Show a little support and at least cash in one coupon. That's your mission. I want everyone to commit to cash in one coupon so that I know that people are at least realizing the importance of both gut health and overall health through
Definitely.
polyphenols.
And if you don't buy it for yourself, buy it for a friend or a family member that may suffer from GI issues. So, of course, Gut Check Project. Like and share, like and share, like and share. Thank you for all of the new subscriptions. We reached out to our KBMD Health community for the first time this last week to introduce to them the contest where we are giving away to at least 5 winners the signature protection package of Atrantil, whether it be with KBMD CBD, natural flavor, or cinnamon. And keep those submissions coming. Get a friend, get a family member to do the same, where you like and subscribe to Gut Check Project either on YouTube or on iTunes. Shoot us an email through going through kbmd.com. kbmdhealth.com, and you'll click on contact, shoot us an email. It's easy. That's all you have to do to sign up. And then in July, we will be drawing at least 5 winners. So they're probably going to be more than 5.
So I'm going to make you kick the science this time. Why do you call that the signature package? Why do those two things blend so well together, CBD and Atrantil?
Absolutely. The great thing that you're doing with CBD is that everything that you put behind this, and if you're listening through the audio only, I picked up both the CBD and the Atrantil. You have real cases that have come through the clinic, and we've shown improvement. So using this combination is what you have found to be the most predictable, I guess, solution for people who've had some type of inflammatory issue. And I won't go through all the different disease states, but essentially combining the CBD with Atrantil is the polyphenols that allow the CBD to even work better.
How does it do that?
Well, there's a little enzyme in there that degrades our endogenous cannabinoids, like anandamide, for instance, named FAAH. And good polyphenol intake actually prevents FAAH from becoming overactive and eliminating the CBD from working where it's supposed to work.
Exactly. So you're kicking the science today, but that's how come we call it the signature package. They each make each other better. And that's how come we teamed up to have the KBMD Health CBD powered by Elixinol.
Absolutely. So, like I said, like and share Gut Check Project. Thank you for all the new subscriptions this last week. That is amazing. They told us it would take at least 20 shows, and we're doing it by episode 14, so we certainly appreciate it. So now we're going to move into Dr. Brown. What do you have on the news topic for today?
Well, so on news topic, first of all, I want to do a couple quick shout outs. I am horrible with time zones, and we were going to have a fantastic doctor, Dr. Gabrielle Lyons. She's a medical doctor in Manhattan. She is a fitness expert, muscle-centric, protein expert. She did her graduate studies looking at protein. She was going to call in, and we were going to talk about peptides, because that's my article that we're going to talk about a little bit later. Peptides. And unfortunately, she texted me and she's like, ready to roll? And I'm like, oh, time zone difference. Forgot about that. And so she is a doctor, so we couldn't get her to do that. But we're going to have her on for a long show. Sure. We're going to either bring her here or we're going to be able to do it. She's, I think, due to have a baby pretty soon. So I don't want to have a new mom flying around like that. We could probably Zoom her in, but she's super smart. And the reason why I bring that up is because we had one of our listeners ask something.
What was that?
And this is right in Dr. Lyons' wheelhouse.
Oh, is this Trisha's email?
Trisha called in and said, hey, can you recommend a casein-free protein powder? Now, coming up soon in a week or two, we're going to have another fitness expert named Max Fairchild. He is super smart, a peptide expert. He formulates nutritional products. He's going to be the one to answer that question. Trisha, we're going to get that to you right away. I can look it up, but I just want to go with the people that have already done the homework. They've already tested it. These are the people that have looked at all the formulations. We're going to find the best one for you. So keep those questions coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you have anything to add to any of the shout outs? You were on an awesome podcast that just aired earlier this week.
I was on the intermittent fasting podcast with Melanie Avalon and Jen Stevens.
Yeah.
I think this is the second or third time I've been on there. I love going on there.
Yeah, second time I think of.
Yes, second time. It's great. We talk about fasting, but a lot more than fasting. We talk about fasting mimetic diets. We talk about all kinds of different things, and I thought it was a great show. And shout out to Melanie. She's got a new podcast, and I'm going to be going on that I'm going to go on it on the 24th. I don't know when she's going to publish it, but she has a whole nother podcast, but that was really cool. Check it out, Intermittent Fasting Podcast, and you can hear that episode. And we talk a little bit more than just fasting. Those are two really smart people, very, very fun people to talk to.
Well, that's awesome. I did want to bring something up to you. I was reading a blog article from Chris Kresser here recently, and it reminded me of something. Do you remember a little over a year ago, there was this new message that was being pushed out talking about sitting is the new smoking?
That's right.
So then we're talking about a sedentary lifestyle. Well, if you remember, it wasn't that long ago that you and I kind of laughed, but there's a lot of truth behind what you eat. Oftentimes you can't necessarily out exercise it. And it was someone said you can't outrun the fork.
You can't outrun the fork. That's a shout out to somebody that we do have to have on the show at sometime named Todd Smith. He's a bodybuilder trainer out of Omaha, Nebraska. He owns supplement stores, and I heard him say that once, and I was like, I'm going to steal that.
Sure,
use that.
There's a lot of truth to that. You know, if you want to be healthy, a lot of it comes to what your food fuel source is. Is it healthy for you, and what does that translate to? So what Kresser was able to illustrate quite well is that if you're sitting for long periods in time throughout the day, you can't really out exercise the damage that you're doing by sitting for this long.
Say that again. So and this came in a blog from Chris Kresser, who we know well and we love, and he's a great guy. He wrote a blog all about sitting then.
Yes, he did. And he referenced a handful of studies that he put together. He does a great job of always aggregating different things that he's reading and pulling great information, making it easy for you to kind of consume, but essentially showed that even marathon runners, when they're not actively training. Now there's other issues that may be going along with marathon running of long-term inflammation exposure anyhow, but that aside, they're actually at more risk, according to some of these articles that he has in there, for coronary artery disease because of the long periods of times that they're not training and that they're not running their marathons. They are sedentary, and that actually affects their metabolic rate from sitting. So then you begin to dive a little bit deeper, looking into sitting while working. If you go to an office and you're engaged with your computer and you're having to type for long periods of time, you're still sitting. Obviously you're working and you're working hard, but possibly examine what would it take for me to get a standing desk or something similar that would give you some variability. In fact, Robo Hendrickson has a new product that he's going to come out with, Robo, that we had on from Full Bucket Health.
That's right. After the show, he was showing us he was working on a prototype to have some sort of portable version of that so that you can get away from just sitting all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant, and it solves a lot of problems. Of course, it gives you a portable office anywhere that you want to go, but at the same time, you now have the availability to not be confined to sitting while taking care of work. Well, essentially what Kresser pointed out is sitting for 11 to 13 hours a day. And many people may say, oh, I don't do that. I get up more than that. And you may think that, but you drive to work and then you put in 6 to 8 hours of sitting.
You wake up, you sit down, have a cup of coffee, you get caught up on whatever it is that you're going to do.
You come home,
drive to work.
You may work out, but that doesn't matter because now you're going to sit down to eat.
God,
and then you're going to sit.
Freaking me out. I'm going to have to stand a little here.
And then you sit down to maybe watch a program at home before you go to bed. That amount of sedentary non-movement over time is an aggregate that you simply can't out exercise according to these studies.
Well, it's interesting because if you sit for more than 6 hours, it's been shown that your lipoprotein lipase actually goes down, and that's what burns fat.
Yep.
You can actually have a decrease in your bone mineral density, leading to osteoporosis, and then ultimately increased coronary events due to high blood pressure and coronary artery disease. Man, when you stop and think about it, sitting is not very good for you.
Nope.
And if you look at how we evolved, we really didn't do a whole lot of sitting. We were always kind of moving around. So let's come up with some ideas right now that we want everybody to at least try for the next week to sit there and do this. So when you're put a timer on your desk.
Sure. Put a timer on your desk. Think about if you can elevate your desk a little bit. There's all kinds of different options out there for you to do it. If you're a teacher, and you feel like that you aren't engaging the students on a particular subject, maybe change the scenery. Have a walking meeting. Don't take the elevator. If you can, take some stairs. What else?
Oh, I was just thinking that for the whole teaching thing, do you remember the meeting that we were at in Utah with Baby Bathwater?
Uh-huh.
And one of the moderators, before they even began, made everybody stand up and shout and jump around.
Yes,
just to get the energy up.
Right.
And just to get everybody moving. And then that's how she said she starts all her podcasts like that. She makes her guests do that just to get them up and ready, which is really cool. So anytime you get up and do that, I think that elevating your desk, we walked around. I actually had a patient from Veridesk, the big company that does this.
Sure.
And we walked around my office and looked at different ways, different desks that we can do for the employees. And I asked everybody, would this be something you would like? And they were all unanimously really interested in that. And like Robo was talking about, he thought that it would be really difficult in the beginning, but suddenly he's standing for 8 hours doing all his work. No big deal at all.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. And don't you find the days that we end up having to pound away a lot of computer work compared to the days that we're doing a lot of scopes or you're doing a lot of clinic visits? I have more energy after doing all the movement throughout the day than I do when I'm once a month, twice a month. I just have to kind of pound out a lot of work on the computer. Those are the most draining days to me. And I really didn't move. I'm just sitting there pounding out on the computer, and it's not enjoyable.
Well, now let's just throw one other thing in there. So people sit there, they sit all day, then they come home, and then they get on their computer, the blue light. Now you're jacking up your circadian rhythm.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really trying to kill ourselves.
Yeah.
Like everything that we do in life right now is basically shortening our health time is really what it's doing. We're doing all these other things to try to correct it. But these are all easy life hacks that we can do. Get out, wake up. One of the greatest, depending on what time you wake up, I wake up really early so the sun isn't out, but one of the greatest things you can do to turn on your circadian rhythm is get up, go for a walk on an empty stomach with sunlight. You convert the vitamin D, you turn on your circadian rhythm, you're telling your brain, we're going to do this. And it does a couple quick things. Number one, you get your body moving, you get out, you get a little sunlight, and you're not waking up and immediately sitting down, which is what a lot of people do. And you know what? I try to do this. So I wake up every morning really early, and I make my coffee in the French press, and I got my little routine. And having a routine is pretty important. If you look at like a lot of people like Tony Robbins and these people that say Arnold Schwarzenegger, like really highly effective people, they all have a very specific morning routine.
Sure.
Tim Ferriss, Joe Rogan, all that. I will sit there and start drinking a little coffee, then working on the charts. I took it one step further, and I got a vibration plate, and I tried to stand on it and actually do my charts. I'm like, oh, I'm hacking this, I'm not sitting. Well, as it turns out, it's really hard to do computer work when your vision's vibrating like crazy at 32 oscillations per second or whatever it is. So
yeah, I've noticed it on those vibration plates are kind of interesting, but if you lock your knees out, man, that really affects my little skinny legs. It just takes that vibration straight up to my eyeballs, and I can't hardly see much of anything.
Yeah, so just simple little hacks. That's something that what we're going to talk about in the next half hour is going to be another hack. I was listening to one of the greatest biohackers of all time, Ben Greenfield. He talks about vibration plates. He talks about getting out there. He talks about getting some sun. They were talking about peptides, which is really what I wanted to have Max Fairchild on, and he's going to come back on here in a few weeks to talk about peptides. And that is another little hack. These are all things that you can do that aren't that difficult to really make a big difference in your life and offset some of this stuff. So if you're sitting there stuck in traffic, or if you're sitting in your cubicle and every time you stand up, your boss says, sit down, or your teacher says, sit down, there's ways to get around it. Just make sure that when you have it under your control, you can do all kinds of stuff. We're going to be talking with Cooper about different ways to engage with nature also.
Oh, yeah.
That's another little way to get your brain stimulated, to get your circadian rhythm in check and all that.
Definitely. And these are things that if you're a member of KBMD Health here pretty soon, Dr. Brown we're coming up with a system where we can start putting together some of these small tips that we're finding out, basically just amassing these studies and how you can take these into a practical life. I mean, if you're just hearing this going, man, I work at X, Y, and Z, I understand it's tough. It's tough to make a change. But what we want to do is see if we can't help people find easy modifiers to make those changes meaningful to you.
And a little teaser, maybe have it delivered straight to your home.
Maybe have it delivered straight to your home. There might be a little bit of news coming out about that over the weekend. So if you are on kbmdhealth.com and a member of KBMD Health, look no later than this Sunday, maybe before, but probably no later than this Sunday. We've got a really, really, really cool announcement on something you've been working on for well over a year.
Well over a year with some really smart people out there. Shout out to Mr. Zell, of course, but I want to make a difference in my community.
Sure.
And I think this is a way to do it. And I'm really excited to start implementing some of these things, meeting other experts, doing all kinds of stuff. It's going to be so neat.
And if you're not a member of KBMD Health, it costs nothing. You simply go to kbmdhealth.com, pan down on the button on the poorly designed website that basically I have no one to blame but myself. And but we are working to improve it. We have an intern. We have an intern that started this week. We have someone who's actually going to help us do stuff.
Thank goodness.
Yes.
Thank goodness that we had to find somebody that's like half our age to do that kind of stuff.
I am super excited to have someone help us get those things done, and he's already off and running and helping us with the redesign. So that will be great. Speaking of which, I need to address something. You know about the processor issue, right?
Yes.
So several of you, and by several I mean a few hundred of you, have had issues while trying to make purchases through the website on KBMD Health, and it's truly no fault of ours. It's two healthcare people trying to run a website, but the processor, since we do process CBD sales, all of the banks collectively have basically come up with new parameters that you have to be vetted and you have to have a right processor. They're basically trying to prevent fraud. So for every reputable business, there's about 20 that just aren't, and they're trying to weed them out. So it's inconvenient for us, but we're getting through it. And I've been kind of forced to handle it in the evening, some phone calls from some folks so that we can do some manual transactions. Not a big deal though. And not all bad has come out of it. I've met some great people, some great supporters, some people who just have questions.
Dude, knowing you, I could totally see you going, no, it's not bad. In fact, I've been invited to several weddings and I'm going to. I'm
vacationing with the Robinsons, whatever, whomever they are. But I did get an interesting call, I guess it was 3 days ago, from a gentleman from South Carolina. And he's been watching the show because his daughter, who lives in Houston, found the Gut Check Project.
Oh, sweet.
And they've been sharing it back and forth, and they like the episodes. Well, he's now a customer of KBMD Health CBD, but he wanted to tell me specifically about what CBD was doing for him. And I don't know if I went into full depth on this with you, but vagal mediated PVCs. That was basically where he was coming from. He said that his vagus nerve, and his interpretation of it was that over vagal stimulation, and even in that, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but would elicit PVCs and then throw him into AFib. Go ahead.
I was just going to say the vagus nerve is a exquisitely complex thing that runs from the brain all the way down. So we're going to have a vagus nerve expert, one of my patients. That's his work as a PhD. He's working at vagus nerve stimulation and what it does and where it can go. So that's a whole separate episode. But I love the fact that he called in. Why do you think the CBD helped him?
I don't know. It's a really good question. His interpretation was that something with the vagus nerve, whenever it wasn't performing properly, he could have PVCs and then throwing himself into AFib. But something that he had found out is that using high quality, reputable CBD dosed actually prevented him from having AFib episodes that could last anywhere between 8 and 12 hours to where he didn't go into AFib anymore. And he had the same experience so far with KBMD CBD, which I thought was great. And of course, this is anecdotal. I'm certainly not making a claim, but this is what he's found utilizing that. And he's been in conversation with his cardiologist to talk about that. But all that aside, I would like to dig in deep with them. Of course, the vagus nerve I think vagus is Latin for wanderer, and it's a nerve that is the parasympathetic nerve.
It's a great regulator, yeah.
It goes all the way down and regulates your gut as well.
And it's interesting because even in the SIBO forum communities and things, people really try and make some sense of it. They try and figure out how to manipulate the vagus nerve. We're just going to bring one of the world's experts on, and we're just going to do a deep dive, real geeky scientific dive into it to make sure that your vagus nerve is healthy. The beauty of CBD, it works like an adaptogen, so it just kind of goes where you need it.
The older you get, the faster time goes by. because that's another half hour. So episode 14, we will be back here after the break with Cooper Reed in just a moment.
Why have thousands of aspiring authors teamed up with Christian Faith Publishing to publish their book? Because Christian Faith Publishing is an author-friendly publisher who understands that your labor is more than just a book. We provide authors freedom and flexibility throughout the publishing process, professional book editing, award-winning design, and some of the highest royalty structures in the publishing industry. And as always, you will retain 100% of the rights to your book.
I was looking to find a company that I could trust, one that assisted in the editing process completely.
The most important qualities that I was looking for was a publisher who was honest and upfront, no hidden costs or fees, and owning the rights to my own work.
Christian Faith Publishing will publish, market, and sell your books in all major bookstores, online booksellers, as well as specialty Christian bookstores. Call for your free author submission kit.
800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. 800-978-4812. That's 800-978-4812.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase.
Dr. Ken Brown here, host of Gut Check Project with my co-host Eric Rieger. I've seen in my practice that Atrantil is a whole lot more than just a bloating product.
Yes, it does a whole lot more than just fix bloating because of the polyphenols that you find in Atrantil.
What are some of the things that these polyphenols do, Eric?
These polyphenols can help you have more energy, and polyphenols are great for athletes.
It sounds like it's going to help a whole lot more people than just bloating. Go to lovemytummy.com/Spoonie.
And we are now back for the second half hour, episode 14, Gut Check Project. I am now joined on my right by Mr. Cooper Reed, digital entrepreneur and social entrepreneur. How you doing, Cooper?
Doing very well, guys. I'm happy to be here.
So you're also a MAPS advocate as well as the, I'm going to screw this name up, Zendo Project volunteer, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Zendo Project and MAPS organization, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm an advocate for that, kind of push that. But really, I'm a volunteer for Zendo Project, yeah.
Well, what is Zendo Project?
Zendo Project is a project that's underneath the MAPS organization. They set up yurts in music festivals all around the world. And they kind of hold a space for people that are having difficult psychedelic experiences at these music festivals.
This is going to be a great episode. I just see story after story. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on so bad is because I really do. We've actually interviewed Dennis McKenna, who is a godfather in psilocybin. There are, in my world, there are now FDA studies going on where they're looking at psilocybin for different things. And we're going to jump right into your history as soon as I kind of talk. What we always try and do in the show is I at least want to get through one academic paper to get everybody up to speed, at least on something. I'm trying to teach something. So there, just yesterday, the U.S. News came out with a report where it showed that U.S. death rates from suicides, alcohol, and drug overdose is reached an all-time high. So I think there is no better time for somebody like you being involved with the MAPS to start integrating some of this stuff, because we're clearly not doing a very good job. We're committing suicide more often. We're dying from opioids and all this. So what I wanted to get into on the fringe a little bit is something called peptides. So I am not an expert in peptides. Max Fairchild is, Gabrielle Lyons is, that we were talking about. But so I try to teach myself a little bit about this. And so I found an article on a peptide called BPC-157. So BPC-157 is a peptide chain consisting of 15 amino acids. So peptides are just very specific amino acids. Mm-hmm. And Ben Greenfield was talking that when does a peptide become a protein?
Protein, yeah.
Yeah, and there's there's really, the experts in this can say, well, it gets really weird because growth hormone is still considered a peptide, but it's really big. It's a really big peptide. So think of that. It's just very specific amino acids put together. So BPC 157, although it's considered synthetic, it's actually a protective protein which is found in the stomach, and it's known for its anti-ulcer effect. So they've known about that for quite a while. Dr. Lyons is the one who told me to start using it in my gastroenterology practice, and I'd never even heard of it. Nobody had ever talked about that. So I'm super excited that I'm now getting into this aspect. So researchers have conducted numerous rodent studies that show that it does have protective effects, but it also seems to extend beyond the stomach and intestinal tract. So BPC 157 has been shown to benefit ulcer healing in the stomach, intestinal damage, such as fistulas, and inflammatory disorders. But there is some anecdotal evidence to show that bone and joint healing also takes place. What I really wanted to get into is, in my practice, I talk about the brain-gut axis all the time. So I found an article, researchers out of Croatia have done rodent studies looking at the influences on the brain-gut axis. And this actually comes from 2016. And what they did is they looked at BPC 157, and over a very long period of time, they tried to show how not only is it protective in the stomach, but it is very useful as a peptide in other areas of the body, specifically the brain. And it was funny because their thought on this was I didn't even think about this. When we talk about the brain-gut axis, the first one to actually show that was Pavlov, the Pavlovian response.
Yeah, sure.
Fistula in the dog, ring a bell, hears it, and then it turns on the intestines.
Yeah.
That's a brain-gut response.
Yeah, it is.
So we all have this. And so the main thing that BPC 157 does, it is a growth-like peptide. So it turns on genes that increase blood vessel growth and nerve growth. I'll say this one more time, because if you're like me, you're going, what? BPC 157 turns on blood vessel growth and nerve growth.
Wow.
That's wild.
That is wild.
So wild. So what they did is they looked at a bunch of different, brain, mood issues, and they specifically looked at these animals and said, well, how does BPC 157 help with this? So I just want to go through, and the article's really big and geeky and
long,
stuff, long. So I just want to go through a few things, because if you suffer from any one of these, let's start talking some peptides.
Okay.
Depression. They proved that BPC 157 actually acts on the dopaminergic and serotonergic systems, as well as the GABA system. Remember a few episodes back, we talked about how CBD can directly bind to serotonin?
Right.
Much like an adaptogen. It's almost like this is an adaptogen also. They show that in these animals, they induce depression, and I never really get into how they actually do this with the animals. I don't know if they serve them with divorce papers.
No, take away their jobs.
Yeah, they fire them or whatever. It's something,
Make them sit down for too long.
They make them sit for too long. So they actually induced depression, measured all these different levels, and they showed that serotonin and dopamine and GABA all came back to normal levels after being injected with BPC 157.
Okay.
Super wild. How about this one? Alcohol withdrawal. They showed that it actually counteracted acute and chronic withdrawal, as well as healing the liver and the GI tract.
That is very interesting, but it makes a lot of sense on why people can't escape alcoholism.
Oh, one step further. Opioid withdrawal.
Oh, wow.
I just got done saying U.S. death rates from suicides, alcohol, and drug overdoses reach all-time high.
All-time high, yeah.
What you're going to talk about is some psychedelics that have some great promise. I'm learning about this for the first time, and I'm reading this, albeit animal models, but it's very hard to get FDA to approve human studies. We know that. So it has to start with animal models.
Sure.
It showed that the opioid receptors would be downregulated after getting it, so that they didn't have that yearning where they were like demanding the opioids.
That's actually really impressive.
Then it gets into disease states. Multiple sclerosis. BPC 157 effectively counteracted the development of brain lesions in MS-induced mice. Traumatic brain injury. They actually stimulated nerve growth and decreased brain edema after inducing traumatic brain injury. Spinal cord injuries. it improved rat tail movement after they caused a spinal cord injury.
Wow.
So basically, this is what I really consider a true life hack. This can be put over. That's how come I wanted to have these peptide experts on. So I have not used it personally. I've not given it to my patients yet because I'm just discovering this. But when we start combining these different things,
Sure.
it's a natural it's a synthetic amino acid sequence. But these peptides, they're really big in the bodybuilding community. They're really big in anti-aging community, which sometimes I've always said that I felt like endurance athletes and bodybuilders know more about nutrition than any gastroenterologist because they manipulate their body through it.
Sure.
So what we talk about here, and you're going to carry the torch now because what we talk about is some pretty cool stuff. Like we've covered stem cells, CBD, photobiomodulation. These are all easy to implement things that can make a huge difference in your life. So I was looking at this. There are some Facebook groups that are really proponents of peptides, and I was sent a couple of emails on that.
I got a question, two of them that I'd like to write down whenever for Max, and just for us to kind of think about, because I don't think that we have the answers specifically from the research that we have, before us right here for 157. But what makes it synthetic, and is there a natural counterpart that does that? And the other one would be with all of the advances or the disease states that we talked about where we'd benefit from, what about peripheral diabetic neuropathy? If we're talking about nerve generation and blood flow and angiogenesis or growth of blood vessels, then that's ultimately what ends up, you got a poor guy who's got diabetic neuropathy in his feet, and he ends up sitting too close to a floor heater and burns off the ends of his toes, and he can't even feel it.
Yeah. Or starts taking Lyrica or gabapentin or something, and all those commercials. Don't take Lyrica if you have it can cause depression. Blah blah blah. Head falls off. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
All those things. So what makes it synthetic? I had to look this up on examine.com. It's considered a 15 amino acid sequence. It's only considered synthetic because the particular sequence has not been extracted in the exact sequence. It's probably believed to be a larger one that gets cleaved that works in the cytoprotective area of the stomach. So it's only synthetic because they've not been able to actually extract it in the exact same sequence from a human.
So it's possible that it lives somewhere, even if only for a brief period of time, that we just haven't found it in its whole form yet.
Exactly. It's like many things that, you can. I've had this discussion with different pharmaceutical companies where when you look at, they'll say, oh, it doesn't get absorbed. But there'll be like systemic effects. And the argument from the pharmaceutical company is, oh no, but when you take our drug, you won't see this in the blood. And my argument is when you eat a steak, you don't see steak in the blood.
Yeah, right.
You break down into an amino acid complex. And that's one of the things that actually happens. To do pharmacokinetic studies, they say, oh, take this. Is it in your blood? Doesn't get absorbed. Okay, but why are my feet swelling? Why do I have a, right eye hurt or whatever? Yeah,
it's the whole pro-drug to active component thing. It's basically I've taken in this whole, but this isn't what it's going to do the action. It's when it's broken down or assembled into something else that it ends up doing whatever it is it's going to do.
Yeah, totally. So BPC 157, we're going to learn more about it. And when we do have a real expert on about that, I'm just going to eat his brain or her brain, whoever the expert is.
That's going to be messy.
I know. We're going to get some subscribes and shares. All right.
Yeah. Welcome to Gut Check Project. This is a mess. So speaking of messes, I don't know why that is even a good segue really at all. So I figured that we should go ahead and reconnoiter here and go ahead and reintroduce Cooper Reed. Like I said, he is a digital and social entrepreneur now, but you found your way there in a completely different career path than where we probably may have crossed paths earlier before, but didn't really get to know each other, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah.
So born here in Texas?
I was born here in Texas, small town. Grew up in Paradise, Texas, tiny little, I don't even know if there's a dot for Paradise, but it's out in the middle of nowhere here in North Texas. Yeah.
Sure. And then where did you find yourself after you left Paradise?
So I after I left Paradise, I went traveling around for, I played a year of college baseball at Texas Wesleyan University. And, then I went into Denton and got really into the arts after my baseball career was kind of over. From there, I decided I wanted to go into performing arts. So I went to Dallas, got a degree in performing arts. And then from there, I got an opportunity to move up to Chicago, studying comedy at, Second City and Improv Olympic up there.
That is awesome. I didn't even know that.
Because what I'm really interested in is we're going to spend the whole show talking about your life.
I just wanted it was one of those comedy cards so I could just say offensive stuff and just blame it on my comedy card.
Yeah, Eric and I actually looked into this. You can actually join the Professional Comedy Association. It's much easier to get into than the Actors Guild. You send like $25, you get a card. So I always just wanted to do that whenever I offend anybody. I'm just like working on my set.
That's it.
I'm a pro.
I don't mean it. It's just a joke.
It's just a joke. I'm just kidding, guys. It's just material. But anyways, from there, I became a father and came back to Texas and had to get a real job and quit bartending and doing comedy stuff on the weekends. I got into surgery technology, became certified surgical tech, and started my career in Denton, and then moved to back home in Wise County, Decatur, Texas, at Wise Regional. There, I'm specializing in neuro, spines and brains and orthopedics.
Well, look at that.
Orthopedics. So he worked with one of our former guests, right?
Would that be Dr. Wade McKenna, our stem cell expert?
Yes, I absolutely worked with McKenna. Several cases. I have so many fond memories of working with that guy. He's so good, so talented at what he does, and then his ongoing research and education for himself and just what he does is just awesome. I'm a big fan of Wade McKenna. I'd like to give him a shout out at some point. Say hello.
Well,
Cooper Reed said hi.
We're actually huge fans. Also, when he came on the show, I thought that was one of the coolest. If you haven't had a chance to look at that episode, I don't know.
Whatever number it is,
stem cells.
Stem cells, yeah.
There is something that you need to look at. Did you ever assist him in any of the stem cells, or did you only just do the open cutting stuff?
I was doing the open cutting stuff, and then he would get in and then he would spin the plasma and stuff and re-administer that, once closing was done to help with the healing and things like, stuff like that afterwards.
He was doing the NOR PRP experiments back then.
PRP,
and he had his own centrifuge, and he usually had one or two dedicated people there that were just. It was basically a mini lab in the OR.
Right in the middle of the OR.
Yeah, just spinning it, while we were doing the case, we'd be spinning the PRP and separating all of that. And then at the end of it, it was, the assist job or whoever was helping, close up the case. They would administer that for the healing process and regeneration that goes on.
It was really cool. He was into it. I mean, of course, you had the other two awesome orthos there, Havronic and Ribeiro. Also.
Yeah. I spent lots of time working with Dr. Ribeiro. He's one of my favorite surgeons. He's a great physician and a great guy in general. Anyways, those guys, and then his first assist, Jacob, who's been with him many years. He's one of my best friends and a super sharp guy, but also super fun and witty guy too.
Another college baseball player.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you had great environment right there. Did something happen where you just said, screw this, you threw down the trocar or whatever it is, take off your scrubs and just walked out, or what happened?
Yeah, so I really I wasn't happy or fulfilled after a certain amount of time. Like I said, I was in Chicago studying comedy and all this stuff, and then I was like, okay, well, I got to get a real job, raise a family, do that sort of thing. So Jacob Mayberry invited me, he's like, hey, maybe you should come check out, follow Ribeiro and I in a case, and then see if you want to go get certified, see if it's something you want to do. And so I did that, audited a day with Ribeiro at Bridgeport, and then from there I was like, okay, I'm going to go get certified. I'm going to do this for a while. And then, several years go by, about 4 or 5 years, and I start to just kind of check in with myself and realize that I'm not happy. My home life, I'm looking back on it now, it might be a little bit of depression. I had all these great things going on, had a good job, I liked the people I was working with, but there was I was tired, fatigue. You
didn't have a creative outlet.
I didn't have that outlet.
If you did the performing arts, then comedy, you've got that brain that needs to constantly be stimulated like that.
Right. And so when in surgery, it became so monotonous, so robotical, doing the same things. And, I rose up to be, really good at, in the spine and neuro area. And then and even that, you know, after a while, I'm like, I'm helping people, you know, with spines and brains. I'm working on that. And that's awesome. That's exciting. I love it. But after a while, I just knew that I wanted, like, my heart was calling me to like be out and about and go moving, shaking. And then, but as my health started deteriorating as well,
Really?
with the fatigue, and the depression, and I started gaining weight. And really it was the unhappiness with the weight and all, not really unhappiness with the weight, but just like the not being fulfilled and being unhappy, plus the weight gain. I had to really check in with myself and figure out what was going on there. So I started taking steps to get healthy.
So let's look at that. How do you think that you ended up becoming unhealthy in that environment? Because unfortunately, we see a lot of people in healthcare, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it. It's the hours, it's the stress, the shift work, all different kinds of things. So our healthcare providers sometimes are sacrificing themselves without even realizing it to try to help other people. How do you think that process happened with you?
I mean, I agree. I think that's what it was, you know, like the long hours, you know, it's physical work. You're on your feet, you know, 12 hours a day.
That's a good thing though.
No, that's a great thing to be moving. But once you know the long hours and just, you know, exertion with the mental exertion as well, you know, and the emotional, you know, you're working with people, you're trying to save lives here, you know, and so they take their jobs very seriously. So mentally, physically, long hours. I
will say though, but you say that standing in one spot, you know, whenever you're working as the technician, you're oftentimes, especially in a difficult case, you're holding a pose for a very, very long time while something's being articulated, something's being cut out, and you really are sacrificing a lot. You get aches, pains, etc. You can probably
absolutely, just this holding these, you know,
And
positions
then,
forever.
and then you want to move. So I'm just thinking back when I was a med student where we had to do that.
Yeah.
And you like, I remember at University of Nebraska, we were doing a gunshot wound at like 2 a.m. and you're holding these retractors and you start getting fatigued, start shaking, surgeon starts yelling at you. So quit moving the field. You're like, not trying.
Yeah.
It's 3 a.m.
You get a little bead of sweat that's just barely rolling down into your
like,
eye.
I hope it's not going to fall into the sterile field, you know. There's all kinds of stresses and that going on. Yeah, for sure. But I think that so over a long period of time, I think that weighed a lot on me, just with the stress that goes on with that environment. And then just, you know, not being out and being active as much and being indoors.
So putting in those hours, and you and I've kind of hit on this in the past, but what was your interpretation of maybe this is an institution of health that I'm in, but make no mistake, it's an institution and it's an industry. What did you think about the hospital industry where you're supposed to be delivering health, and then maybe some of the execution of some of that as it rolled out?
Right, and that's where so morally, I saw some things that didn't sit well with me, you know, being in that industry, right?
Sure.
I saw that you have the patient that becomes like kind of just someone that's there in the middle, right? And you have, for me, in a lot of cases, you would have the insurance companies, you know, and the doctors kind of going back and forth. And it becomes more of like a number, you know, the patient becomes maybe a number versus like, hey, let's really figure out what's going on here, rather than like walking in and being like, okay, who's insurance? What, you know, what's the insurance here, you know? And so that for me is like, it was one of the minor things, but it was one of the things that caught my attention, you know, that like it's where the healthcare system is for me is like, it needs to be more focused on, you know, like the patient and patient health and the patient well-being, rather than, you know, worrying about, you know, the money parts and the insurances. And I know that all plays a very important role in it all, for sure. But it just kind of seemed like the patient was kind of being put to the wayside, and just, you know, and so that was for me one of the indicators. Like, I don't know if I'd want to stay in this, you know, and make it a career.
Well, I know that the three orthos that you referenced, Ribeiro, McKenna, and Havronic, they all were incredible patient advocates.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it's the hard part I've seen them struggle with it too. It's like, how can I deliver this service? And Ken, you know this, a lot of times it's not even, can I do this without insurance? It's, do I even have a place to allow this? You tried to do a charity case here recently and almost got blocked when you're trying to give up your time. And that kind of stuff gets in the way when you're like, look, I'm just trying to provide a service who needs it. And we've got others who are able to basically burden that load.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's super complex, and
Absolutely.
we have developed a system that is an organism that feeds on itself. We have developed a system where, well, like Chris Kresser talks about all the time, we are trying to fix the end organ thing and trying to and then people have figured out how to make a profit on it.
Right.
And I remember listening to Peter Adia talk one time where he was a cardiothoracic surgeon, I think, because he really felt like he was at the bottom of the hospital and people were lobbing eggs, and he was just trying to catch the eggs. He's like, why don't we quit throwing the eggs out the window? How about that? And that's kind of what you're getting at, where your mind, I can see that you are very in tune to your feelings, nature, and everything. And that's really cool that you took a step back and went, wait a minute, this is not for me.
Right.
And I'm not going to be able to solve it. So you're not going to go into hospital administration or politics. So.
You know, I was working, I was editing blogs for a guy who's really into sustainability named Rob Greenfield. And when I was working with him, I was like, man, how do we, like, I would love to try to take on the medical industry and just the waste that they produce and everything like that. So I've like had the ambition, like, and the thought, like, how can this happen? But then again, you know, it's such a huge, there's so many things that are going on with it. But yeah, it's something that I can't solve. But I took a step back and said, well, I would love, I know what's going on, but I'm going to take a step back and do what's best for me. And so that led to me, I did take one last hurrah as a travel surgical tech, went travel and took some contracts, you know, out of state to kind of see kind of where my mind was on that.
And then went, it's not just Wise County.
It's not just,
this is a nationwide problem.
Yeah.
Was there a straw, a proverbial straw that kind of was like, you know what, this is the part that is just non-negotiable for me, or was it just kind of everything together?
It kind of, you know, it all kind of came together, and it was where I was in life, and it just kind of felt like a time to move on. Yeah, I love the people that I work with, and you know, I enjoyed my time doing that. But at the same time, I was ready for more. I wanted to be fulfilled. I needed challenge. How
old is your son at this time?
So I have a daughter. She's 8 right now. So back then, whenever I stopped all this, you know, she was 5, 6 years old.
Yeah. Guts.
Yeah, really.
And so I imagine that you left there for a much more lucrative investment banking type thing where you just moved to Manhattan. What did you do?
So quite the opposite. So what I did is I took the little money I did have and I purchased a school bus and converted it into a camper, and then spent the rest of my money on Christmas gifts for the family that year. And then, converted that school bus into a camper and went roaming around in the mountains of New Mexico and a little bit of Colorado. And
no plan,
really, other than I wanted to get into travel. Like, I'm like, now's the time to do it. I want to figure out a way to make a living, you know, traveling. So what do? I get the school bus converted, and I'm just like, I start inviting people on these adventures up the mountains to kind of like, hey, I'll take you on an adventure, you know, pay for the gas, give me a little extra, and I'll show you a great time. I have connections in New Mexico and Colorado and, you know, various other places in Texas. So that was my first kind of entrepreneurial thing.
How would people find you?
Social media. Yeah.
Really?
I was utilizing social media. I started, I became a part of this group called Superhero Academy. You can find them superheroacademy.net or anywhere online. They got a really good thing going on. So I started learning about social entrepreneurship and just how to utilize, you know, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube to make a living, right? To put yourself out there, to brand yourself, right? And so this was back in 2015 or so that I started it, 2015, 2016. Anyway, so I started. That's how I started. That's how everyone knew. Like that's where I was posting, just with my close community, friends and family on Facebook, and you know that's where my first few customers came from. So, and then we went from there.
Did you have a long bus or a short bus?
It was kind of a short bus. It was like it was an old. Well, it wasn't. It was a 1998 Thomas, and it was one of the shorter versions. It wasn't the long one, but it wasn't necessarily like a short bus either. Sure. It was like one of those like mid weird, like big. Tweener, but it was like getting big and blocky, and but it only had like 67,000 miles, and it was a diesel when I bought it from a kid that was moving down to Texas A&M and had it for his buddies to go fishing in, and I paid $4,300 for it, and I was like, this is a little nugget of gold right here.
That actually sounds pretty awesome.
That sounds really cool. Unless you had like your first few guests ended up being like serial murder or something. Are you Jason? There's a guy in a hockey mask holding a machete and
what's in the bag?
Come on in, let me show you an adventure.
Yeah.
Why's your trash bag so heavy?
He probably would have lightened up on one of my trips. Yeah. Jason. We had a good time, and that's what it was about, though. It was about getting out and finding yourself and exploring and being out in nature, and also just the travel experience and the cognitive effects it does have on the mind, and just how healthy it is. I think a lot of our health starts at our in our mind, our thought process, and our brain. So that's what I wanted to show people. Hey, get out, do what you love, but also here's a healthy way to do it by getting outside and pushing yourself, challenge yourself. Let's go skiing, let's go snowboarding, let's go kayaking, let's go hiking up in the mountains.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So that's actually the stuff you do. It was almost like it was like an adventure bus.
It was an adventure bus. Yeah, that's what it was. Absolutely.
Did you have any problems with that 98 diesel in the cold ever firing up?
Yeah, I mean, no serious problems. There were a couple of mornings where it was just like slow to start. But it would usually fire right up, man. This thing was a beast. It just ran and ran and ran. And I think part of it was because it had low mileage and it was just kind of getting broken in, like those diesel engines will run forever and ever and I'm just getting broken in. But no, it fired right up in the mountains. Yeah.
Wait, that is the exact opposite of the job that you were doing as a surgical tech. The exact opposite.
Yeah.
That's a trip.
But just real quick before we have 30 seconds till break, but
okay.
Did you feel that the moment you began to engage with people on a personal level that suddenly now you're starting to feel an elevated mood versus always seeing patients that were asleep?
Absolutely. And that was my favorite part of actually being in the surgery is like, communicating with those patients before they went under. And then, yes, when I moved into it and started talking with people one-on-one, that was where I really started to thrive. We're
going to wrap up this half hour and join Cooper again for the next hour, but we'll be back here in just a moment, and that's not where his story stops. See you in a bit.
This is the only 24-hour take-anywhere platform dedicated to food and fun. We're Spoonie.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. The House Intelligence Committee issuing subpoenas for former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and former Trump Deputy Campaign Manager Rick Gates.
It's part of the committee's ongoing investigation of counterintelligence issues raised by the Mueller report. Committee Chairman Adam Schiff says the two have refused to cooperate fully. The subpoenas demand that the two submit documents by June 26th and appear for testimony on July 10th. Both Flynn and Gates are cooperating with prosecutors in ongoing investigations. Both have entered guilty pleas to various crimes connected to the Russian interference in the 2016 elections, but have yet to be sentenced.
Capitol Hill correspondent Wally Hines. Amid heightened tension in the Persian Gulf region, 2 oil tankers have apparently been attacked in the Gulf of Oman.
The 2 vessels reportedly sent out SOS signals, and their crews were evacuated. Who might have carried out these attacks and how is not yet clear. But this has happened in shipping lanes that carry a significant amount of the world's oil supplies and at a time of high tension in the region. The U.S. recently tightened its sanctions on Iran and reinforced its military in the Gulf.
The BBC's Alan Johnston. President Trump says there's no harm in listening. That's what he tells ABC's George Stephanopoulos, who asked the president whether he would accept campaign dirt against a political rival from a foreign source.
If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
Mr. Trump insists that simply listening to the information would not constitute outside interference in a U.S. election. Stocks are higher on Wall Street this hour. The Dow is up about 94 points. The NASDAQ ahead 51. The S&P 500 index up 12 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Are you tired of high cable TV rates? Sign up for Dish today and get a $500 bonus offer while supplies last. Plus, lock in your price for 2 years guaranteed. Call All American Dish, your Dish authorized retailer now.
800-570-6630. 800-570-6630. That's 800-570-6630. Offers require credit qualification, 24-month commitment, early termination fee, and e-auto pay. Restrictions apply. Call for details.
If you're trying to quit drinking or doing too many drugs, listen to me. You don't know me and we'll never meet. I had a problem like you once. I drank and used to party a little too much till it got out of control and almost ruined my life. I realized I needed help to fix my problem before it totally destroyed me. If you've tried to fix your drinking and drug problem and you know you can't do it alone, you need to call the National Treatment Advisors. They'll immerse you into a 30-day program to replace your old habits with new habits and totally change your life. And if you have PPO private health insurance, the entire program may be covered. Fix your problem right now before it gets any worse. Get clean. Call now and learn more. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. 800-296-1252. Fast Track Student Loans can get your student loans out of default, stop any wage garnishments, stop collection calls, and stop seizure of your tax refund. Give yourself a break. Stop the stress and get your student loan payments down to as little as $25 a month, based on what you can afford to pay. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395. 800-709-4395.
And we're back for hour number 2, episode 14, Gut Check Project. Check your ego at the door. Nothing's off the table. We're joined today by Cooper Reed, digital and social entrepreneur, and, of course, a MAPS advocate and a volunteer for the Zendo Project. We will get to that in just a moment, but let's touch base again in case you've forgotten. LoveMyTummy.com/Spoonie. Get your discount on atrial today.
And the big challenge for everybody, we want everybody to commit. Buy a bottle for a friend or family member. Use that code.
Use that code. Everybody's a winner there. And don't forget, if you really want to win, subscribe and share the Gut Check Project. Go to Gut Check Project on YouTube, the Gut Check Project channel, or search for Gut Check Project on iTunes. Subscribe. Then all you have to do is go to kbmdhealth.com or gutcheckproject.com. Connect with us. Let us know that you did it. You'll be entered. We're going to draw at least 5 winners in July. That's it.
5 winners, and what are they going to get?
They're going to get the signature protection package, which is Atrantil and KBMD CBD 1 month supply, no cost to you. Enter as many times as you want, but of course, we'll just see what happens. How many times you can subscribe? So, but we'll go that route. If you're new to Gut Check Project, we are hosted on the Spoonie Network, and there's an amazing array of shows out there that Dr. Brown and I both have tried to take in as many episodes as we can. Everything from Family Meal with Chef Mark Conway to No Butts Too Big. That's just with 1 T. That's with Elisa Shakespeare. And of course, the great Chef Patrick Mosher is on this channel also. So tune in to the Spoonie Network. If you ever want to learn a little bit about food, it's not just Gut Check Project on here talking about new innovations in health and new approaches. It is also a lot about food and food science and improving the way that you eat.
We're just trying to this is about making everybody better. And we're listening to Cooper talk about some really cool, brave changes in his life. He saw that his health was heading in the wrong direction, pivoted and got that bus/camper and started doing things. So you started discovering nature and things. So one of the things that I like to do sometimes with Eric is I'll ask him philosophy quotes, and if he can remember the philosopher who said it. So here is the philosophical quote of the day. Reality is wrong. Dreams are for real.
Reality is wrong. Dreams are for. That was what, Tupac?
That is Tupac.
Tupac said that.
That is nice.
Hey,
Nice.
Tupac was a philosopher, man. Like he say what you want about it, but I know a lot of people love him, but man, he's got some content. He's got some context.
Look at that.
New to the game, went straight to the hip hop repertoire. That is nice, Cooper.
Nice.
Welcome to the
He
show.
may have cheated and heard one of the other episops, but that's good. That's actually really good.
Yeah. No,
So-
that's good. Normally it's Lil Wayne.
I was going to do a Lil Wayne one today, but I don't know. I think this is pushing the boundaries on it. So
It's not Silent G's and lasagna.
Silent G's and lasagna there's a whole website dedicated to Lil Wayne quotes.
That's so funny.
Push to none in a wheelchair. Call that Virgin Mobile.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, of
He
course.
wrapped that in a song.
Yeah.
A lot of truth in that.
Well, I just like how, at what point are you going to maps.org and you say, listen, I need to write some music. What do you have for me? He's just like, put it all in a cup, mix it up with some whatever it is, lean.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to do it. I'm going to write some crazy lyrics, some
Yeah.
beautiful stuff. So.
Well, hey, we left off last half hour. You were talking about the bus.
Right.
Do you have any experiences in the bus that maybe didn't go exactly as planned?
Yeah.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, I had a couple. No, the one that sticks out the most though is we were in Taos, New Mexico, and it had been
Love Taos.
What now?
I love Taos.
Oh man, it's my favorite. So we'd been there for about a week or so. I was with my brother and my friend Amy. And we were just having a good time up the mountain. Some other friends were over in Angel Fire, so we like met up with them, got on the mountains, and then it was time to go home. And we came in on this like really sketchy like mountain trail, and then we were just like, and I was like, I'd been there several times and came in like the normal way, but for whatever reason, the GPS like was like, we're gonna go this direction, and I was like,
and save you 2 minutes.
Yeah, save you 2 minutes. Yeah, and I was like, okay, cool, we're gonna go this way, the back way in. And so naturally, like when we left, like there was there had been snow, and the temperatures dropped to about 0 while we were there. So when we were heading out, I'm like, I'm gonna go back that direction and see what happens. And that was not a good choice. We got up. We're going uphill on these frozen roads, and this is trail. This is all dirt, this is just rocks and dirt. And I'm like, I knew it was sketchy going up, but I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna go with it and see what happens. And we start sliding, and I can't get it under control. I'm trying to press the brakes at one point. We're just kind of on this incline.
Did you have air brakes on this bus?
I don't even know, honestly. I have no idea.
They were actually Flintstone brakes.
Everyone had to put our feet down through the floorboard.
Your toes getting really cold.
No, we were just sliding and back. We we kind of were going off of the mountain side a little bit. It wasn't like a steep drop off, but it would have been something that I could not have gotten out of. So I tried to like steer it back, and as I was sliding backwards, I turned the wheel and got it like just perpendicular with the road, and then tried to pull out. But even turning and trying to get out of it, it just made the situation even more, and I ended up going into the bank of the road.
What is everyone saying on the bus?
And everyone, after a lot of silence, it was, it was like straight silence for a long, and then you have the hum of the engine going, and everyone just quiet, like what, like why did you take us this route? And, like, we understand you're about adventure, but like this is not for us. And like I said, my brother is just back there shaking his head, like I don't know how we're gonna get out of this.
Your brother's probably looking at that, being like, I don't understand how you got insured for this travel thing. Insurance? We don't need insurance where we're going.
Exactly. No, let's just go. Anyway, so we go into the bank, and the nose of the bus is stuck into the side of the road and the snow and all that. So we had to get the city officials or the rangers. I think that the park rangers showed up, and this big old snow plow monster truck looking thing comes out, and they tie a chain on and yank us out and get us going back the opposite direction, back to the safe road.
Did they trail you just to make sure you made it down?
Yeah, they did. They did nice. Because the rest of, luckily though, it was all like downhill, so it was just kind of easy cruise down. But that was a sketchy moment because like we almost went off the mountain on the backside, then we crashed into the bank on the other side. So
when you were following this snowcat thing, did it have a bumper sticker that said, if you can read this, you're an idiot?
Might as well. I was just I don't know, man. It was just like, I'm gonna try it, I'm gonna go with it.
But see, you know what I love about that stuff I would not do. I mean, I would only like go on like the most. I totally admire you from doing that, and I think that is what's so cool. You left this career, you jumped in both feet, and you started pushing your boundaries.
Exactly,
including that. That's why having these events that you got through and you became a little better for it. That's what, if you're on the fence on something and you're worried about failure happens.
I like how you brought along some innocent people for your adventure.
For my wild stuff. Yeah. They're great friends, and they're friends. I don't know why, but they came with me, and they all lived the story. Tell their own versions of the story. So, that's what I'm about. Experiences, right?
I would love to hear their versions. Like everybody's screaming. He's just got quiet in his head.
He's just meditating.
It's calm.
He
just pulled the curtain curtain behind him and told us to sit down. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, but that was kind of the most sketchy moment, being on the side of that mountain, not being able to get up and get out of there. Yeah, but other than that, though, it was a lot of fun.
So after that, you, I know that you had the bus, New Mexico and Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
You then told me that you had moved to taking a trip down to Mexico. Is that right?
I did.
Is that right after this? Or
that was shortly after. I had really
that would do it to me too.
Yeah, it was a little bit after. I wanted to change of scenery. I'd been hitting the mountains hard, and it was February or so. I was like, oh, something tropical sounds nice right now. And I had the freedom. I created the amount of freedom from, I downsized a whole lot in the process of moving careers and changing careers.
Sure.
Went minimal, like downsized from a house to like a spare bedroom and a bus. So I had some freedom. And I was like, I'm going to take a trip down to Mexico. I did a garage sale to raise a little bit more funds for that and took $176 with me and spent about 7 weeks down in Mexico, all around the Riviera Maya region from Isla Mujeres and Cancun down to Playa del Carmen, down to Tulum,
and
then back up. Yeah.
And just on that money?
Just on that money.
Holy
Just on that money. Now, I did have, I had a savings account, and so I bought a one-way ticket for $82 when I went down there. And so I didn't buy a returning ticket back until several weeks into that trip, but I had savings account for that plane ticket back. But I just went with $176 cash, and that's all I used. Ended up getting a couple of jobs while I was down there, staying in hostels, using couchsurfing.com, where people open up their doors to travelers all over the world. Need a place to stay, you get in a pinch. You can get on this, you can get on this website and app, and there's always someone that will let you in and crash on their, on a pallet on the floor or a spare bedroom or the couch. So couchsurfing.com and hostels is how I afforded a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Did you make any good friends?
Oh my gosh, man. I met people from all over the world. I made great friends. There's a guy down there right now, Chelo Fernandez. And so he comes from a long line of fishermen down there that have specifically lived on Isla Mujeres. So Isla Mujeres is a tiny little island right off of Cancun.
Which is beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
It's so pretty.
It's so great. And so he comes from a long line of fishermen there. And so he was one of the guys that I used on couchsurfing.com, and he and I just hit it off, buddies. He taught himself English by playing American video games and watching American film. So that's how he learned English. And so so now he's got his own little tour guide boat, and he takes people out on adventures for snorkeling. He's also a whale shark diver. And so in July, I'm hoping to go down there and catch some whale sharks. Not catch them, but hang out with them in the waters down there. Yeah. So Cello was one of the great friend who I go down there and visit all the time now. And then people from all over the world: Italy, Sweden, Switzerland, Argentina. I mean, people I met people. We made these connections while we're all there traveling. We're all just kind of relaxing in that travel zone, that travel spirit, and so you meet people all along the way, all walks of life. And so I have people who've invited me to their homes all around the world after connecting with them while traveling. Said, hey, anytime you're in our part of the world, come hang out.
So first, what were kind of the jobs, and what were the tenures of some of the jobs that you had down there?
Oh, so I have a background in bartending and restaurant management as well. So there's a part of Isla Mujeres down Hidalgo that's a little bit more tourist, but it's got a long line of markets and restaurants and cantinas. And so I found myself bartending for one cantina and bar restaurant, and then at another one I was a host. They liked that I could speak English and talk to this English speaking tourists. So I would get people, hey, how's it going? Where are you from? Come on in, try the food.
Nice.
So doing things like that. And then for one job we got, it was kind of the beginning of the digital marketing kind of side of trying to make money doing that.
You weren't doing you were just doing the digital marketing just to get yourself out there on Facebook,
right.
And people would say, hey, can I give you this amount of money to go hop on the bus and do this?
Sure.
So you just went down there and
yeah, so I was doing a lot of blogging and vlogging and stuff like that, trying to be one of those travel influencers, if you will. So then while I was down there, funds got a little tight, and so there was a little spa company that right up, or a massage company of those huts on the beach, and so they were wanting to grow their business, and we just ran into them at a cantina or something like that, and they said, well, can you build us out a website, and we'll pay you So my friend Amy and my friend Amy who was on the crazy bus experience. Yeah. Crazy enough, she's a trooper, and she met me down in Mexico. She had a week to spend, so she came down to Mexico, and so we helped build out this little website for a little massage company, and that was kind of the first a little bit into digital marketing.
Were they one of the first ones in their geographical area to have that?
I mean, in their niche, in their spa and their massage hut, yes. But there were other restaurants that.
I don't know if you follow them. I actually follow them. They're now Massage Envy. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They actually became Massage Envy. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But.
Congratulations, Cooper.
Digital marketing was insane.
It was just a whiz, man. Yeah. No, but that was another way that I made money doing that for a little bit.
Did you, just like out of curiosity, did you market to people that were going to be potential tourists? Like, so they know that they're going to book travel to that region, and so now you're putting their website in front of those particular people rather than just the local.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And so I have a friend who's down there, Sean Petty with everythingisla.com. He's a he's a family member of mine, but I wanted to help him out, but also wanted the experience of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that I had a huge group of, friends and family here in Texas that needed to discover Isla Mujeres, and so putting Sean on, putting his other businesses on, sharing the experience on my branding and my trying to influence travelers, and then in hopes of getting sponsorships and other gigs at hotels and hostels around the world. That was kind of like my hopes in doing all that, and that's a lot of the why as to why I did it. But I was trying to get people to come down and kind of influence the Isla and just really influence travel in general.
Well, that's awesome because you were benefiting the island, you were benefiting the people coming down, they were learning, you were helping the locals.
Absolutely.
I think that's great. That's a very rewarding and fulfilling thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
So that's what you did for work. What was your downtime like there?
Oh man, downtime was paddleboarding and kayaking and just hanging out at the hostels and meeting new people.
Sure.
When I mentioned the family from Argentina, like they scooped me up and I just spent the whole day with them. I met there, so there were 3 siblings. No, there were 4 siblings. 4 siblings. I met them at a hostel called Pocna. If you ever go to Isla Mujeres, you got to go to Pocna. It's like one of the oldest and one of the largest hostels in Central America. So we're hanging out there having drinks, and I end up running into the brother. The brother, he was my age, so we start talking. He owns a hostel down in Cordoba, Argentina. And so he and I hit it off, and he introduces me to his sisters. They're on holiday with their father, and they're like staying gone for like 8 weeks or something like that. They'd already been through like Central Mexico, and we're just kind of traveling along. We spent that night together. They're like, hey, in the morning, meet us at the beach so you can meet our dad. So I went and met Koki, the dad, call him Koki, and he doesn't speak a lick of English whatsoever.
Where was the dad staying?
Where was he staying? At the time, I think he was at the hotel room, at their hotel room.
So they were staying in the hostel by choice.
They were hanging out at the hostel because there's this big like open bar. Like there's this big like beach bar. There's this huge beach bar out there. So people come to party there, and there's also like a lot of rooms and beds, of course, to stay.
Cool.
But like it's one of the party spots, of the island. And so that's where we met. But then, they all end up staying at their hotel there. I don't know. I'm not sure which one they were at, but that's where he was hanging out. Next morning, I met him, spent the day on the beach with them, and then by the end of it, they decided to invite me down to the next couple of stops, which happened to be like Playa del Carmen and Tulum, and so they just took me with them. Like said, hey, come on, we like you. You want to travel with us and go down and experience some more of Mexico? And I was like, I looked at my, checked my wallet, like, sure, let's go. This isn't going to be good on the funds, but I'm going to make it happen, and we'll see what comes of it. And I had a great experience with
You kind of gauge
them.
it where you realize, well, I noticed that sibling never finishes her food. I'll just play cleanup on that plate.
Yeah, right, yeah. They were super hospitable. And that was their culture really, I don't know. One of the things I observed about their little families, like anytime they had anything to drink, anything to eat, like they just passed it around to every single member of the family. And I'm like, that's really cool. They just like share it with everybody. Like I grew up with like a brother and a sister, family of 5, and it's like, fend for yourself, man. This is my food. Anyways, so then that part of the culture was cool.
Cordoba is actually where my parents met. My mother's Argentinian, and so one of the things that they do as a culture is they have something called mate, which is a tea. Did they do that around you at all?
Yes,
they put
that's
it in.
Cool.
You have what's called a bonbon, and then you put this mate tea, which is a tea full of polyphenols, and they think that that's one of the reasons why a lot of the Argentinians, at least traditionally, that's what they would do. But what they would do is you pour it in, and you have this metal straw, and then you sip the water out, but then you pass it on to the next person.
Okay.
Everybody, it's a community tea that everybody sucks out of the same straw. And it's the culture of coming together around this one thing.
That is awesome.
And
so
it's really cool.
Thing
They
with
have,
you?
yes, yeah. So, and then so a lot of Argentinians will go to East of Mujeres. And so that's where I started seeing it. And I was like, and I talked to one guy, a guy who ended up putting some dreadlocks in my hair, Basquito was his name. But he always had one, and he was like really cool, intricate design. How do you say it? The
bonbon.
No, bonbon. So his was like really cool. So I approached him and found out all about it. And it was a tea. And so, yeah, like they share it. They just like, yeah, you're here with us, your family. We'll share everything with you.
Is there a particular time of day?
Not that it was kind of random from what I, you know,
so
just
we
like almost like coffee time, tea time, it's kind of like centered around like those days,
That's so
those
cool.
hours.
A really quick little story about Argentina.
Sure.
My friend Russ Havranek, he called in, his father died of ALS. We did a show talking about that, about stem cells and all that, helping with that. Well, Russ and I were invited down to Argentina when I was a medical student. We didn't know what we were getting into, who was inviting us or anything. And we went down to Hospital Italiano in Buenos Aires, and we show up, and we had made no plans or anything. A family invited us. There were patients at University of Nebraska, and so this is classic Russ. We get in there, we're like, should we wear white coats or should we wear like suits? And he's like, yeah, let's just go with suits. So we go in, and then the residents came up to us. They're like, oh, we have American med students. And Russ doesn't speak a lick of Spanish, and he goes to the chief resident. He goes, what are we doing? He goes, I think we're going to go do a liver transplant. He's like, we do liver transplants in Nebraska. We didn't fly to Argentina to watch other people do a liver transplant. And I went, yeah, true that. Russ puts his coat back on and he goes, tell them, this is straight, like this is exactly what he said. He goes, tell them we're here to evaluate them for an exchange program. And so in Spanish, I tell the guy that. The guy goes, oh, lo siento, lo siento. Next thing we know, guy shows up, and on his card it just says Jefe. Boss.
The boss.
He took us right to his office, filled up a mate, and said, let's have some fun. And that was how the next 2 months went, where it was just like, just that one moment where Russ just went, nah, we better go all in on this one.
Yeah.
We didn't do any work.
I love it. I love that, man. That's a great story.
But that's immediately the way to bond is to get the mate out and share it. So we shared it with El Jefe.
What a cool tradition, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
So you go down and you travel with them a little bit further south.
Yeah.
And then how many weeks in are you on your 7 week stay?
That was really early on.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty early. That was like my first couple of weeks down there. I met them.
So it's really hard for you to make friends, obviously.
Yeah, right. No. Yeah, and so part of the reason that I ended up using couchsurfing.com and really spending a lot of time in the hostels was because I had a cousin that was down, she used to live down there, and she would sublease her place out. She would sublease her place out and come back to Texas to work. And then for a week or 10 days, spend the rest of her time on Isla. Well, she's like, yeah, well, I got this place. You can come crash if you're going to come hang out. So I'm like, cool, free place to stay with cousin. Great. Well, they get their wires crossed, miscommunication with management and the leasing people. And so it turns out and she ends up leaving to go back and stay in Texas for a month this time. So she's like, you'll have the place to yourself. And so I'm like, great. And then the day after she leaves and gets back to Texas, she's like, so I'm so sorry, but there's been a mix-up with management, and they've booked out the Airbnb or VRBO or whatever it was.
Sure.
Booked it out for the rest of the time that you're there, except for a couple days here and a couple days there. So being pushed out from my comfortable little cool spot is going to be hanging out, for a couple of months. I end up having to be out and try to figure it out, couchsurfing.com, hostels. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened. But I was down there. And
were you blogging the whole time? If we started to get a following at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. I did a couple of stories about what Hidalgo Avenue has to offer. And kind of how there's a flow down there when you start hanging out in the nightlife. They start off at one place and go to another, and just kind of as things close down and slow down, there's just kind of this flow. Anyway, so I talked a lot about that. And so just really quickly after a few of these blogs and, taking pictures with it, I got a pretty good following, like out of nowhere. It just kind of took off. What helped though was my friend Sean with eastlamoharris.com. He shared it on he shared one of my blogs on his Facebook page, and so got some traction with that. And like within a month or so, I had like 750 subscribers, like out of nowhere on my blog. So yeah,
that's awesome.
So that's where I really started getting into photo journalism and blogging.
Well, this gives us some really good background on you. You've got a very interesting past, but now we've got about 45 seconds, but now we're going to get into some really exciting stuff where you expanded everything, and now we're going to talk about the MAPS, which is what does MAPS stand for?
The Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. Yeah, so I got into that just with all the new research coming out from Johns Hopkins. I kind of rabbit holed into YouTube and found out a whole lot of cool stuff through Paul Stamets and Dennis McKenna and Terrence McKenna, and really got into the effects of psilocybin on the brain.
This is amazing because this is it parallels what you did when you went down to Mexico. Basically, and I was kind of curious, but people probably followed your blog because they wanted to know about that.
Yeah.
And then engaged, and now you're basically just functioning as a new blog for a new level of tourism. We'll be back with the last half hour here in just a moment.
Got an old car? You can donate it, whether it's running or not, to the United Breast Cancer Foundation and save a life. They'll even come and pick it up for free. The United Breast Cancer Foundation has saved hundreds of women's lives through their free or low-cost breast screen exams. But now they need your help. The United Breast Cancer Foundation wants to save more lives through early detection by offering women free or low-cost breast screening exams. And donating your old car, SUV, or truck, whether it's running or not, helps pay for them. Plus, you get a charitable tax deduction. Help the United Breast Cancer Foundation save lives by donating your old car, SUV, or truck. Call now for free pickup. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. 800-245-0823. Call right now. That number again is 800-245-0823.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-452-1075. 800-452-1075. That's 800-452-1075.
Never Forgotten Apparel is more than just a premium women's and men's clothing line. It's a movement to remind us to wear American-made and serve those who serve us. Our heroes. Never Forgotten Apparel gives 20% of their total sales to nonprofits that support homeless veterans and off-duty firefighters, and 50% to individual veterans and firefighters in need nationwide. Check out neverforgottenapparel.com. Use promo code MATT, M-A-T-T, and get 15% off your purchase.
So unfortunately, but we're listening to music as it comes on.
What do you think?
I'll just dance with you guys. Man. I, just like, I don't hear it, but man.
Just realize you're not wearing headphones. I'm like, just follow along.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, this is Cooper, impromptu dancer.
Yeah.
He hears nothing. So Cooper Reed, we're going to continue the story. So we left. We're in Mexico. You're down there for 7 weeks, having an incredible experience. It sounds to me like meeting new people. Mm-hmm. And what I was hitting on at the bottom of the hour was that it seems like people probably followed your blog because you were engaging them in something that they didn't know enough about, but they wanted to explore. And that kind of led to what you're doing right now. Is that kind of a good?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the way that travel affects, our consciousness and our mind, it's such a powerful way. It's a stripping of the identity. Really, you're in this place where you don't speak the language. You've never seen the scenery before, so everything is new. Your senses are heightened. You're just taking in all this information, right? And so that's fascinating to me. The consciousness, that aspect, the nature of reality, and how we all, how it works together with our mind. And so that led me into reading more articles about consciousness and things like that, which led into the expansion of consciousness and altered states. And so in that, going in that realm, I found psilocybin mushrooms and LSD and DMT, psychedelics.
You mean the knowledge of them, or you just started dabbling in
I
them?
started, the knowledge of them. I had a little bit of previous dabbling in my early 20s with it, which completely changed a lot of things in a positive way. Some of my first experiences. So with having those experiences, and then now having the knowledge behind it in the studies and the research that's coming out now, or started in 1994 with Johns Hopkins, I started just absorbing a lot of that information and that content online, and found like Paul Stamets, Dennis McKenna, Terrence McKenna, and just kind of I was also going through how I talked earlier about wanting to be out in nature, so I found myself out in nature a lot just for meditation purposes and just kind of health reasons. And then I started noticing mushrooms around, like a lot more than I'd ever really realized. It kind of come into my awareness. And so then every time I'd look around, like, man, there's mushrooms and they're everywhere. And there's so many different kinds of them too.
Isn't that funny? Because we talked about that NLP. That's a neuro-linguistic programming. Once your brain opens up to it, you will notice.
Absolutely. That's like, have you, people play with this. One of my good friends plays around with this about parking spots when he goes to the grocery store. He has this word that he uses, but he does this going to the grocery store and just like for open parking spots close to the store, so he doesn't have to walk very far. But every single time, like, he finds a place. Anyway, so once you're aware, it starts to show up in your reality. And so I started seeing mushrooms everywhere. I started kind of following them around and learn more about how they spore. And so you'll see in a mature like little group, you'll see a ring. Like they call them fairy rings. They're like there's just rings of mushrooms because that's how they spore. And so I really just got into it. I wanted to find more mushrooms. I got several like books on field guides to figure out which ones were which. Identifying the species. And in learning a lot from Paul Stamets on that, he's like the leading guy on mushrooms worldwide.
On edible mushrooms?
Any kind, like whether they're...
He's a full mycologist,
He's
right?
a full-blown like mycologist. He's got a lot of great stuff out there. I think he's been on Joe Rogan once or twice too. So, anyways, he's got a lot of good knowledge, and he's got this whole YouTube channel as well. But anyway, so I started just really absorbing a lot of his content based on it, and his love and passion for mushrooms and mycelium kind of bled over into me because I found myself out there amongst it so much. So I started even like doing prints, like taking the spore prints and figuring out, okay, is this poisonous? Is this edible? Is it safe? Prints? So what you do, so you can take the caps of mushrooms, take the cap and you can lay it down on some foil or some like paper and just kind of, and put it like the gills down, like the top of the cap up and the gills down, and leave it there like overnight. And you can remove the cap and then find out, and it stains a certain color, like orange, purple, brown. And based off the spore prints and what color it is, if it's like edible, poisonous, psychedelic.
Did not know that.
Yeah. You're reminding me of something that I completely forgot. And in Little Gainesville, our Boy Scout troop or our Cub Scout troop did that.
Yeah.
And I forgot all about it. That is really, really interesting.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to identify them, and that's one of the main ways to do it, but also you can pick it up. And if you want to find, psilocybin, mushrooms, which is the magical kind, the way that they bruise, when you pick them up, you can pinch their stem or like their caps, and if they bruise, that's the psilocin molecule, and it bruises bluish, purplish, and that's how you know you've got something that's magical in that one. So anyways.
On a quick pivot.
Sure.
Snoop Dogg.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, he had his pig, Snoop Dogg.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Golly, I can't believe I'm going to screw up it. Snoop Hoggy Hog.
Snoop Hoggy Hog. They had a little miniature pig.
Sorry, Marie. R.I.P. Snoop Hogg.
Oh man.
And it ended up eating
death cap.
A death cap.
Oh right. Yeah.
And Russ lost his dog to doing the same thing. And so I'm curious how animals, they don't have some sort of defense on that.
To be fair, that pig would not, I think whenever you have a pig in captivity, even if you're keeping it as a pet, they're going to eat more. They're going to be less discerning in terms of what they choose to eat. I read that since then. So it just saw a mushroom, and rather than try to figure out if it was right or not, I think it just went for it.
It didn't have any foil, and it didn't. It couldn't lay
did not go
overnight.
to the imprint
Yeah,
or
to do the
anything.
imprint, get back there in the lab and study it a little bit.
No, but in all seriousness, does that happen in the wild? I mean, I get that, like in captivity, we've probably bred out some of these instincts, but do animals eat these poisonous mushrooms in the wild?
Usually, it's very rare that it happens. I think that they know something, and whether it's the smell that the mushrooms are giving off or something they sense, but it doesn't happen in the wild, not very often that I'm aware of.
It's almost always a domesticated dog or another pet that ends up consuming the toadstool or the dead cap or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think you just kind of lose that edge.
You know what? This is one of those things where now I'm going to see mushrooms everywhere.
Yeah.
I just have never really thought about mushrooms.
Yeah. Well, it's like this is kind of a good time of the year, like with the rain, it's hot for several days, and then we'll get some rain, and then those things will pop up everywhere. So this is a good time of year, and also in late September is also a great time of year around here in Texas to find mushrooms of any kind.
While you're doing this research and you're reading, what led to you to say, okay, there's more to it than me just doing identifying and however you're mapping? I know you didn't go into becoming a full mycologist, but obviously you were drawn to those who were. What took you to that space, and what did you want out of that application there?
Well, just it was so fascinating to find out what mycelium does. Mycelium, which is the organism that fruits the mushroom. What you see with mushrooms is just the fruiting of the organism, much like the apple is the tree. The tree is the organism that fruits. Mycelium is the fungus, is the organism that fruits these mushrooms. So mycelium acts as this like underground network, almost like a vast internet system for the plant kingdom. And so there are signals being passed across this mycelium, and it really resembles like brain neural pathways as well. And so just finding out that they are communicating and protecting each other via all this stuff.
I did not know. Yeah, so I'm just looking at a picture here.
Yeah.
Where it really shows this vast network underneath the ground.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so through the soil, like it's all through the soil, and so they are communicating. The plants are communicating through mycelium, and obviously other mushrooms and mycelium are communicating in this vast network, and so they're protecting. They're warning off, other. Whether plants that could be encroaching or animals or whatever, but it's just signals. And so learning about that and what it's doing, and then Paul Stamets did an experiment with like toxic waste. They had this like bunch of toxic waste, and there was this issue. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was like a building or an industrial something. They had this big pile of like waste and trash, and it was toxic. And so what he did was he fermented it and placed some of these spores of this specific type of mushroom, and it grew like crazy, and it decomposed this toxic waste and this trash and ate it all up. So not only like you have these mushrooms that are good to eat and good for us, but you have these mushrooms that are decomposing the waste and then the toxic stuff that we can't hardly get rid of. Like these mushrooms are eating it and bringing it down back to organic matter.
I don't think that was that long ago you mentioned to me that they're looking to basically take plastics that we can't recycle, and then you put them into, and they function as fungus compost piles, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they return them to the earth the way that we need them.
Yeah, they're starting to break down plastic, or they're starting to discover that they can break down plastic and really just hard, stuff that you think, man, that stuff's going to stay in the landfill forever, but mushrooms are like showing to decompose them.
Yeah, they were able to do discover some of that movement whenever they thought they were predicting, how long a plastic grocery bag would last in the landfill. Mm-hmm. And then so as they started doing, the soil sampling, they're doing these long cores, they're pulling it out. They started discovering that where they knew plastic bags and plastic material were, they had been broken down into not plastic, trying to figure out what had happened. And there happened to be fungus, and mostly related to mycelium and various types of mushrooms that had helped break that down.
That is absolutely fascinating. I had no idea.
Yeah,
wow.
The world of mushrooms is just so fascinating. And Paul Stamets really thinks that mushrooms are going to help solve a lot of the problems that are going on right now with like waste and all this, a lot of things, health and the environment. Like it's just vast opportunity that mushrooms are starting to like show and prove that they're capable of so many things.
I have a feeling that when Chef Patrick hears this, he's like, of course, mushrooms are fantastic. He's a chef. He has his own cooking show.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking the mushrooms, what are we going to do? Portobello? What is it going to be? no idea that this other whole world exists.
Absolutely, yeah. And so, learning about all that and just becoming fascinated with how it works in nature, like its purpose in nature, I thought, well, there has to be a purpose, right? That it has this psilocybin, and we have psilocybin receptors in our own brain, in our brains. So, nature, it all goes hand in hand. So I was like, there's got to be something here, right? So let's figure out a little bit more about like the psychedelic side and the psilocybin side and what that does and the experiences that's going on there.
Is that curiosity what led you to MAPS?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that's exactly what led me to MAPS, is because their research, starting in 1994, no, it wasn't their research, I'm sorry, but the research that started in 1994 at Johns Hopkins University, there was just so many profound learnings from that experiment, and the patients going on to have, way like almost no depression. About, I think 76 of them, they checked back about a year later, and like anxiety, depression was almost non-existent. And then about 85 or 86% of those patients said that was the most profound and meaningful experiences of their life, or one of the most profound experiences of their life. So learning a little bit about that and just kind of what was going on there led me to discovering the MAPS organization, Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. And they are raising money. They're a nonprofit to continue the funding of psychedelics.
Is this the organization that Tim Ferriss he pledged $1 million to do this year?
I think so. I think Tim Ferriss did, and Jason Silva is a big advocate for him too.
Wow.
I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he's a really big advocate. So if you want to learn more about like what they do, what they're doing with MAPS, you can follow Jason Silva. And I'm not sure about Tim Ferriss, but he might be.
I listened to his podcast, and on the podcast he said, "I will commit to donate $1 million this year to this research," but it seems like this would be the place to do it.
I think it is. I mean, because they're the forefront of it. It was founded in 1986, and they've been really just kind of pushing forward with this research for all these years. And they're right now they're doing MDMA studies, and they're having huge success with it in patients with PTSD, like veterans and whatnot. And so like they're in phase 3 of trials right now, and it looks like it's going to be passed for therapeutic use very soon.
Just looked that up this morning. Marie actually brought up if I knew if they had made any movement in that area, and we just happened to Google it, and you're exactly right. That happens to be very recent headlines where they're trying to reassign the scheduling of MDMA so it can be moved to research specifically for PTSD and depression.
That's the molecule in ecstasy, in the street drug ecstasy,
correct.
Right?
Yes.
It's really interesting also that you're talking about what MAPS is doing to fund research, because I believe, and I could be mistaken, but I believe the Hefter Institute, where Dennis McKenna works and founded, they do a lot of research specifically around psilocybin. Usually they do a little bit of other stuff as well, but most notably with psilocybin. And we were talking about this earlier. Whenever you talked with Dennis, he illustrated that they've got a long-term running study where there's still over 91% success rate of curing people of their addiction to smoking. So,
this is the reason why I was so excited to bring you on, is that you don't come in with this PhD and this agenda. You just found this journey and you just discovered this, and now you're impassioned to share it and to voice this. So for anybody, please subscribe, share, and anybody that struggles with addiction, smoking, alcohol, drugs, opioids, or if you battle anxiety or depression, there's hope. I really think that we're going to be able to use these in a controlled environment and make a ginormous difference.
Yeah, without question.
Absolutely. That's what it's all, that's what it's all coming down to. And so, you have the decriminalization of psilocybin mushrooms, of magic mushrooms in Denver. In Denver, and then in Oakland, also shortly after Denver, Oakland, California, decriminalized mushrooms too. So people are starting to become aware and realize that, it's not as, serious. We shouldn't focus, like the policing of it, but also as more and more research comes out, the positive health benefits that have come along with these medicines. I like to call them medicines,
Yeah. Did you ever? So one of the things that I listened to a TED Talk, and they were describing that it's one of the few times that you can be. Most people describe a positive reaction as the first time they became self-aware, because it's almost impossible for our egos to let us dissociate, look at us in a very self-aware kind of situation. Once you can do that, then you're able to, or this is what some people have theorized, that then you're able to control the thoughts easier because you've seen yourself in a different way and you're like, no, I'm actually in control. A lot of times when you have anxiety and depression, you feel that you're at the mercy of these mental health issues. And did you ever do it high dose and find the self-awareness aspect of it?
Absolutely, yeah. I've had several experiences, and so Terrence McKenna talked about if you're going to do it, you're going to take the risk of doing it. This isn't something you do with the guys and the gals like hanging out and going to parties and going to the beach or whatever. This isn't like a recreational fun type of thing. This is a therapeutic, meditative, medicine. So do it by yourself in the dark. Close your eyes and no exterior stimulation going on. And so that's the way that I chose to do it. Like following, so obviously you guys know Terrence McKenna is Dennis McKenna's brother, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, I saw a lot of his content, and so I wanted to do it. Like, okay, this is what Terrence is going to say. I'm going to give it the test and experiment it. So I've had several of those experiences where by myself you learn so much about yourself. And that's what comes to the forefront is your subconscious. You talk about our egos, like that's what we're constantly we're living off of and living through most of the time, right? But then when we have these experiences, our subconscious, what's going on under the surface comes to the surface. And so you really get to sit with it and see what's going on internally. And like you said, remove yourself from it's a new perspective, right? And so you do a lot of self-discovery, self-journeying, and you come away from it totally like it's almost like a cognitive cleansing as well.
Cognitive cleansing.
Yeah.
That's a great term.
Yeah, and that's what happens. That's what they're saying happens because the brain lights up. You're using all the different parts of the brain. You're dealing with stuff that you've maybe been suppressing. That come out, and it could come out in a challenging experience. What people call bad trips, whatever. That could come out if you don't allow it. But if you sit and you allow yourself to deal with what's coming up and go through that experience and go through that trip, you just kind of surrender to that moment, and it passes, and you learn something about yourself.
People that are very skilled in meditation, and if they really get to the point where they can do this, they will experience something very similar.
Absolutely.
If you go through and then I remember reading that they've done like functional MRIs on people where they can look, and people that are very skilled at meditation, their brain lights up in a very similar way with somebody. So it's almost like fast forwarding yourself to an area where you can achieve that without 10 years of therapeutic meditative exercises. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've seen those graphs and those charts, of the brain, and you're exactly right. It's instead of, meditating in a cave for 80 years as a monk,
I always have this image of like some sort of cartoon where some guy comes out and he's just like, I have done it, Nirvana. And there's another guy who's like 20 years old and he's like, should have tried this.
Yeah. Everybody you know is gone, man. Yeah.
So I am no longer angry at my father. Well, he's not angry at you either. 'Cause long gone.
Yeah. There's a friend of ours, Hollis, who has I think either 2 or 3 times signed up for. It's a silent retreat, and it's a minimum of 12 days. And there's a protocol where you do not do any talking. You try to avoid complete eye contact for a solid 12 days. And I believe that he said he's got experience with various psychedelics as well, and in a very reflective fashion, trying to find, Hollis. I mean, he's very deep thinker.
Super deep thinker, super smart, just like one of these really uber successful people, but self-aware.
And he says that the schedule is meditation. It's meditation, food, mild exercises, but meditation. And that it's outside of that level of reflection back upon himself and what he wants out of life. And he's a very calm and calming presence, is Hollis. And he says other than that, it's basically mushrooms.
The closest thing that I can come to something like this is I went to a very tiny, small religious college. It was a Lutheran-based college. My mom taught there, so I went for free. And super tiny. A business professor, I'll mind you, the whole religion thing is the reason why it was interesting, was hosting a guided Jungian theory of meditation, where he would guide you through it. He was a big proponent of it. And so I was like one of the only science students that showed up, and there was probably like 60 people on the first night. And it ended up being like 3 hours long. And the next night it was like 20 people. And then the next night it was like 4. It ended up being like 4 of us that did it for like weeks and weeks. And it's a stepwise process. I mean, now I understand why true meditation, because you have to be ready to accept these skills. And what happened is that a couple people would like wake up bawling and run out of the room. And then I would talk to them later and they're like, oh my God, I had to like deal with my abuse. An uncle sexually abused me or whatever. And it just came and just right in the face.
Yep.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. We have stuff that we're trying to suppress and run away from. And when you turn and look at it, then you can gain control of it.
Absolutely.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, it takes work. It is practice. That's why they call it practice. Meditation, it's a practice. And I started off doing like 6 minutes, just sitting underneath the tree just to get outside and sit under a tree. And I started with 6 minutes and then worked my way up to longer. But it's a practice and it's difficult. But
so Cooper, for somebody like me that just kind of, I've got a lot of issues. So I was just kind of thinking of like jumping all in, just throwing some ayahuasca, maybe some ibogaine, how about a little LSD, some MDMA, and then just finish that off with a you said skull cap?
With a cap, yeah.
And so that's just Tuesday.
Yeah, that's just on a Tuesday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is no, but they do they? I remember listening to some podcast.
Yeah,
it may have been Chris Kresser, where he had a doctor on discussing this, where he went to a retreat in New Mexico, where they did a guided psilocybin experience, so that you have people that if you start to go into a bad place, that they walk you out of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so there's a network of underground guides out there to help people with these journeys, because they are so passionate about the health involved and just the results that they see, that they take that risk, but they're underground and there is a network of these guides out there. But you absolutely, unless you are, well-versed in meditation or psychedelics, you want to find a guide. Honestly, that's the safest way to do it. I don't know how to do it exactly. I've never found a guide. I've always just kind of done my thing. But like I said earlier, this isn't like a party drug. These aren't something that's recreational and you should go out and party on. This is something that it's therapy, it's inner work. It's dealing with the some of the dark stuff, right? It's dealing with that and facing it so that you can move on and have a better quality of life. These guides help through that process. You're going through it and they're kind of guiding you through it. You're having your own experience, but if things come up, you're able to kind of go into it with this guide, and the guide is there to listen, to hold space, and to help you navigate your own journey through that. So it's fascinating.
I like that you brought up the fact that you said that you've kind of educated yourself on how you have maintained your journey, and it's obvious that you've taken the serious tone of you want it for the benefits of the self-reflection and the therapy. And something that's really popular here recently, and we've even had patients who talk about when they come in for the colonoscopes or the EGDs, is, have you ever heard of microdosing? And that was something that we brought up with Dennis McKenna, and he said that he's not necessarily sold on the advent of just microdosing, that if you don't cross the threshold of having the deep experience, that actually the microdosing is simply just not beneficial over time. Is that something that you've run across as well?
Yeah. So I think that there are several benefits, to microdosing. You get the medicinal qualities of the psilocybin.
Can you explain what microdosing is real quick?
So microdosing is taking a smaller dosage, probably around like anywhere from a tenth of a gram or a half of a gram, like really small doses of these mushrooms, or LSD, and just doing tiny doses. So, and they, rather than taking a full blown like large dose where you have these spiritual or psychedelic experiences. So microdosing is just a way to get the benefits of the medicine without having to go and like not be able to talk to anybody for 6 or 7 hours.
Sure,
be shut up in a way. But microdosing, I think that there are benefits to taking those smaller doses, just because there are neuro regenerative aspects and qualities of psilocybin and mushrooms. So I think that you can get benefits from them. But I think as far as the therapeutic, the true therapeutic, I think I agree with Dennis McKenna on that. You have to pass that threshold. You have to go on that journey. You have to go there.
Yeah, he was all about that. He just basically said, microdosers.
Yeah. Another topic he brought up too, though, was that nature once again wins, and that is that there's nothing inherently wrong with occasional LSD to get to this point. However, psilocybin and psilocin are not shown to have the possible heart effects that long-term use and exposure to LSD can produce. So then there's not going to be anybody much more experienced than he and his brother, and I believe his brother passed several years ago. But
oh, really? Terrence passed?
Yeah, I don't know, probably a decade ago.
2001, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, longer.
Yeah, I think in 2001 he passed away.
And so that exposure, though, long-term with psilocybin, they've still not shown that there's any long-term detriment to its exposure. So there's ways to weigh things out, and Mother Nature always seems to know the way.
We say this all the time, Cooper. The Mother Nature seems to always do things better. Drug companies try and isolate one little aspect of it and say, we're going to be able to get a patent on this. We're going to get FDA approval, and now this is going to be this. And they're going to try and do it with psilocybin, guarantee it. They're going to try and do something like that. Right now, look at the treatments that are going on for depression. Do you realize that depression alone is such a burden on that organism that we started the show with, which is the healthcare burden? Depression leads to so many things. If we could fix that one thing in my lifetime, if we could do something to help that through CBD, BPC 157, psilocybin, whatever, game changer.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Cooper, where can people find you now?
Hey, you can find me on social media, Facebook, Cooper Reed, R-E-A-D. I'm on Instagram as well, Cooper__Reed, R-E-A-D. I'm in Decatur working as a marketing director and content creator for a real estate agent out there. So I get to go fly drones around and create content and videos around that. So yeah, that's what I'm doing.
When are you going to become a guide?
It's underground, Ken. Can't talk about it.
How much time do you have today? Right.
That's going to do it for episode 14 of the Gut Check Project. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Like and share. Go to gutcheckproject.com to let us know that you've done that. Ken, see you episode 15.
Great show. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.